Well, I call it, quarantine and chill or quarantine and build. No matter what's happening in your world, you're big enough to handle it. Where whenever there's a storm, Jesus said he would give us the keys.
But, high performers, we have like a set thing that we do, and it's a habits that really design, our life.
I definitely believe we are a product sometimes of our past, but we don't have to live into our past over and over again. But I ended up going to jail, and when I went to jail, I really got put in that cage, and it was like God was saying, okay, what are you going to do after this? It's your choice. You have free will. You can choose how you're going to move forward with your life, and a child of God. But what's my purpose in that?
Your mother prayed enough for you to not get hurt, but for you to experience enough pain to where it would cause a change for you.
Really remember for what we claim to be, of who we say we are. We remember for what we survive and what we overcome. And successful people are always a survival testimony. I don't believe failure stops anyone. I believe the story the person tells themselves about the failure is what stops them.
Yeah.
Fail as quick as possible.
You chase the mission, Rachel, not the money.
I understand because I walked through that. So there's healing for other people in our scars and in our wounds. Our scars is what we overcome, and our wounds are what we may be going through right now. No matter where you're at in life, just know that each of us is more than the worst thing that's ever happened to us and the worst thing we've ever done.
And welcome to our another episode of From Underdog to TopDog, and I am here with my friend Jeremiah Captain, who is coming to us from, are you back in Las Vegas?
Oakland, California.
Back
California. Yes, California.
Back in Oakland, California. Awesome. So glad that you're joining us here today. So Jeremiah, we're just going to get right back into it and I just want to ask you, first of all, like right now at the time of this recording, we're actually in an unprecedented time that we're in a quarantine, which is why there's no special lights or microphones going on here. We're just at the beach and real. And so I just kind of want you to share a little bit about, what you've been doing in this time. And, some people have approached this, with the Netflix and jammies mentality. And I just kind of share with our listeners, like, what's been your approach in this time?
Yeah, well, I call it, quarantine and chill or quarantine and build. And I'm a builder and I'm a creator by nature. And I just believe, first off, before I share anything, thank you for having me come on here. I just really appreciate you and your husband, what you guys have created, just the leadership that you guys possess and just the voice that you have, that you're letting God just use you to impact, his people. So just acknowledge you and your husband for that. And, secondly, I'd like to acknowledge all you listeners that are tuning in and zooming in and connecting just with this platform, just to be touched, moved, and inspired. And I have a deep respect for any and every single one of you guys that may be going through something right now. I don't know where you're at in life, so I can come on here and just give you the captain philosophy and just say, hey, this is what I'm doing, and try to, not, speak nothing but positive empowerment into you, but the way you may receive it may be thinking, I'm telling you, if you're not doing what I'm doing, you're not succeeding. At the end of the day, we all are in the same storm, but we're in different boats. So whatever boat that you may be in, you may be celebrating great victories, or you may be walking through great difficulties. And I just respect you no matter where you're at. But I do empower you no matter what's happening in your world. You're big enough to handle it. When you go to God and keep him first, you can get through anything. And just to speak to this pandemic, there's power in the pandemic. There's power in the perspective. At the end of the day, the principles of life never change, no matter what's coming at us, whether it's a good day or a bad day. It's all relative of what you call it, where nothing's good or bad, but the way you think about it make it show. One of my quotes I've heard from Shakespeare, it's just how you look at the situation. We can celebrate that that the thorn bushes have roses, or we could be mad that roses have thorns, right? It's just how we look at the situation. Where look at the time that we have now. Look at you being out on the beach and us able to connect through technology. Imagine this pandemic happening 40 years ago when we didn't have the technology that we have now. Where would we be at right now? So there's so much greatness that we can be looking at this. I'm a father of 2 teen daughters that are 14 and 16. We co-parent. They're at their mother's house right now. But when I'll share a little bit of my story, when we were, figuring out how we were going to co-parent together effectively, I lived in Seattle, I lived in Las Vegas, and I missed a lot of those early programming years of their lives when they were with her during the school year, and they were telling me for the summer, so I always felt guilty about missing some of that time. But now this is all I have is time with them. We spend 3 weeks of locked in the house together, really getting to know each other and grow each other. So been really enjoying the time with family and time with my mom, time with my kids, and then from there, time to really focus on things that really matter to me. And that's my business, and that's my coaching and building my brand. So I really just been focusing on these 3 principles where whenever there's a storm, Jesus said he would give us the keys to the kingdom, not just one, but multiple keys. And the first key I talked about was management, like managing my time. What am I doing to control myself day in and day out? And then being disciplined in doing those things daily, and then being diligent day in and day out to do that over and over again. And the way I start my day, I call it the 5 P's of performance. I start with prayer and meditation. Then I do some type of product that I take for my own nutritional value. I prepare my meal. I listen to some type of podcast and do some type of reading, and I do some type of pump. So those are just pretty much my preparation. I get all those prayer products, prepare my meal, podcast, and pump. So those are my 5 P's of performance to kind of start my day. And when I'm consistent with that, it doesn't matter if it's a pandemic going outside or if it's just a normal Monday or a Tuesday. When I'm controlling those things, I can handle whatever's coming at me.
Yeah, I love that. Speaking of consistent, it's always consistent in people, high performers like yourself, that you have that daily habit. My husband calls it the 5 F's. So faith, fitness, family, I don't know. It's fun. Something else. Yeah, it's consistent with, high performers. We have a set thing that we do, and it's a habits that really design, our life. And so I love that you pointed that out. So I want to kind of start. A lot of times when I interview people, and I know a little bit about you, but I know in our old business when people would introduce us, I'd be like, so you were born, then what? But I don't want but so I know that you're born in Oakland, California in 1983, and you had a great family, your dad's Jeremiah also, and your mom's Fanny, which I actually met in Banff when you took her with you to Banff. And so share with our listeners a little bit about your childhood and maybe how it's shaped you into who you are today.
Yeah, I definitely believe we are a product sometimes of our past, but we don't have to live into our past over and over again. Where, I grew up, great family, mom and dad, strong believers. My father's actually a pastor. And so I grew up in church, had, God in my life at a very young age, but I had to take God on for me and not just take it from my family. But with my dad being a pastor, being responsible for so many people's lives, and my mom also having to work, they weren't always around, when it was during the week. So I kind of had to raise myself through just my sisters being out in the neighborhood and the community. And they tried to protect me from the neighborhood that we lived in. But at a certain point, I got exposed to, friends that were, having fun that I thought was fun and making money through selling drugs. And I fell down that pathway where being the preacher kids out selling drugs and doing things I don't think a preacher should be doing. But I I don't regret any of that I did. The one thing I do regret is what I put my mom and my father through, the embarrassment that they may have felt, but the shame, but also the fear they may have had over my life. But my mom, is one of those praying women. I know that's why I had that hedge of protection. She prayed over me where nothing too bad happened to me, but I ended up going to jail. And when I went to jail, I really got put in that cage. And it was like God was saying, okay, what are you going to do after this? It's your choice. You have free will. You can choose how you're going to move forward with your life. And that's when I made a pivot to rededicate my life back to Christ and not go back down that road. But I had a deep understanding of how it was so easy for even someone like myself that had good parents, that had this structure, to fall down this path of potential destruction. So especially coming from a neighborhood where I grew up, where some kids didn't have parents in their life, never met their mother, never met their father, never had a structure. So how easy it was for them to fall down that pipeline. And that's where I decided to have a passion to help serve and teach other people how to turn, from their ways and get their life in order if they wanted to. So that's a little bit of just the backstory. After I got done with jail, I went to, college, played football, got my degree, moved to Seattle, worked in corporate America for 6 years, had an opportunity to try out with the Seahawks in 2009. That didn't work out. So each moment of these times for me, being the preacher kid, to being the bad kid, the drug dealer, to being the football athlete, potentially about to go to the NFL, to end up working in corporate America, and then after corporate America being fired, and we'll talk a little bit about that later, having to recreate myself, these different identities I have to just walk through and have these shifts as we all go through these shifts in life, from childhood to adolescence to young teenhood to young adulthood to middle age. So we're all trying to recreate ourselves, and that's what I've been doing for the last 36 years. It's just understanding really who is Jeremiah and who am I connected to. And I know I'm a child of God, but what's my purpose in that? What am I called to do in the world? And I just was able to really discover that in the last 5 years. So I'm really excited just to continue to share more of what God has called me to do in the world. I think you're muted.
I'm sorry. There we go. I have children, walking in and out. So a praying mother is a dangerous woman, thank God for those praying moms I know. And that, and I thought about when you were talking about where it says in the Bible about train them up in the way to go, and then they will always return back to it. And I love also what you said about your mother prayed enough for you to not get hurt, but for you to experience enough pain to where it would cause a change for you. That's so important, that people would do anything to avoid pain, but we know pain is what actually, we do things for pleasure or pain, right? So if we experience a pain, it's what actually will evoke change in us. So I love that you pointed that out. So let's kind of shift to this. So, it talks in the Bible about when Elijah was mentoring Elisha, and that in order for Elisha to kind of take over, he had to burn his plows. He had to burn the plows, and he had to make that transition. I have to do this, and I can't go back to that. But sometimes God will do that for us, where he will make it to where we have to transition in order to go the way that he wants us to go. And so, I want you to kind of tell us about your experience of that. We both kind of experienced that, where, something was just kind of taken away. And there was a few ways for us to approach that. We could have approached that as, man, this is a blessing, or man, that really sucked. Just for me, it sucked for about 5 minutes. And then I realized, all right, God does everything for my good. So share a little bit about what's been happening with you for the last year. what happened?
Well, I mean, there's so much beauty, as you spoke about pain and adversity. And, once again, to quote another Shakespeare, I don't know why I'm on his hype right now, but he has some great words to bring language together. He says, sweet are the uses of adversity. It's beauty of what adversity brings to you, because we're never really remembered for what we claim to be, of who we say we are. We remember for what we survive and what we overcome. It's the test that creates the credibility. It's the test that creates the trust. And, we have to understand the crisis doesn't come to truly conclude our life, but it comes to bring credibility to our life to see if we are who we say that we are, if we believe what we believe. You know what I'm saying? And, we talk about like, I can overcome this, or, have, even with us being in multiple businesses in the past, having multiple streams of income, when one business or one thing is taken away, can we still adapt, or did we really, give that was that an idol for us? Was that the only thing that was possible? And I was doing some reading this morning, and it was talking about how I use that word management. We are leaders first, more importantly, but we're called to manage everything that we have our hands on. So the word management, can mean stewardship, but the word manage goes with the word man first, like mankind. So we're called to manage those things. Like we don't own anything. Like I bought this computer. Yes, I have a business. Whether I'm in a direct sale organization, that's what you and me have built our careers in, and we've done other things in coaching outside of that. But I could own a store, right? I can own a gym, like the four walls, but then something can happen and take that away from me. So I still don't own that, right? So when I don't put all my necessary eggs in one basket from a financial standpoint, but all my eggs from a physical, in a psychological standpoint, I can adapt and change at any given time. And I think the problem with so many people, especially sometimes even from our parents and our grandparents, even though they survived a lot of stuff that they went through as well too, but the way society programmed us we were taught, you're born in the world, you're thrust into the world, and whatever way you grew up, and they tell you to go to school, learn all that you can, and then go get a job and hold on to it for 40 years. And possibly our parents and our grandparents could have probably worked one or two fields their entire lives and never had to learn anything new. Like they just worked the same thing and possibly became masters at what they do. And that's great and that's beautiful. But the way the world has evolved through the technology and just how volatile the industries are, they change like that. So we need to really learn how to earn and relearn and unlearn some things just like that in a matter of 3 to 4 or 5 years. Just because things are always changing, things are always evolving. By you owning a gym facility right now, you guys are probably innovating and doing some stuff online right now, because crisis is the incubator of innovation. When a crisis comes, something new has to come, and we got to innovate and pivot very quickly. So it forces us to become a version of ourselves that we didn't even know were there. So I think there's so much power in that, helping people learn how to really, I think the most powerful thing we can be as leaders are as learning how to adapt. So what happened to me in the past year, to speak to what you spoke to as I get to that point. Sorry, I just kind of elaborated for about 5 minutes there. But just talking about, building a huge organization, selling tens of millions of dollars through the direct sale industry, and having that business, not necessarily stripped from me, but just a decision decided something for me where I no longer participate in the income opportunity at the level that I was going through. And I was willing to walk away from the industry and go use the talent and the skills that God already had given me, from speaking to consulting to empowering other people and creating other different, diversified revenue streams. But I took time, because I believe successful people seek counsel and unsuccessful people seek opinions. So I went to some mentors that I have in the industry, whether on the corporate side or in the field at other companies, very successful. And they strongly encouraged me to take my time over the next, if I can move slowly over the next 30, 60, 90 days, I would find something that would be specifically for my heart. And some people chose to move very quickly when that transition happened. And I understand everyone has to, bear their own cross and, and set their sails of where they want to go. But I want to take that time because I wanted to do the research and find the credibility that spoke directly to me. And God provided and blessed me with an amazing opportunity with a company that I'm a part of down in Scottsdale, Arizona, called X Endurance, and it aligns with my vibe, my ethos. And I'm so grateful for that. So sometimes we're being released from something because we're being called to something else. And successful people are always a survival testimony. Like, there's no such thing as a successful person that we admire that just was given everything. Like, that's not success. That's not attractive. Nobody wants to hear how easy it was. And that's what we have this podcast about, being the underdog and coming back, because people want to see you go through the jungle. They want to see you wrestle the bear. They want to see you fight the lion. They want to see you be torn apart then you overcome. And it's like when success is what people think of you after they try to kill you. And they're like, wow, this person still made it, right? This person is a fighter. So, that's when I looked at anything that I've overcome in my life, from my past to my childhood, the things I got exposed to at a young age, neighborhood I grew up. I've seen some things that will probably destroy, 97% of the people on this call. And vice versa. You've seen some things that I would have went through would have destroyed me. We are all called to our own cross. So when we look at our past victories of what we overcame, it prepares us for what's coming next. So we know that if we overcome that, we can overcome this.
I love it. That's amazing. That's exactly how I feel. And life happens for us, right? It doesn't happen to us. I mean, you could choose that if you want, but it's about who you become. If something's given to us, we didn't grow in the process. So I love that you said that. So let me ask you this. Let's talk about something that maybe you failed out in the future, and then how did you fight through that? Like maybe an obstacle that you've come across, and then how did you fight through it?
Well, it starts with faith. You just believe that, I'm connected to the source that's going to help me get through it. But more importantly, failure is relative. We have a misconception of what the word actually means. Whales don't fail, but human beings do.
Yeah.
Like a whale does what a whale does, a lion does what a lion does, a tree does what a tree does, but we do something and we say failure, and it's like, oh, there's something wrong with that. And our school systems teaches us that failure is a bad thing. It's the worst way to teach kids, to grading them, to making them feel bad for doing something wrong. Then they don't ever want to make any mistakes again. So when we fail big and we're not afraid of that, then it's okay to fail. So I don't look at fail as a negative thing. I look at it as a positive thing. I look at it as I'm taking action, as we've heard the acronyms or stories of fail forward. So all I could say is what failure is, the true meaning of it. I took an action and I didn't get the result that I was specifically looking for. Like, that's what failure may be. Like, I wanted this to happen and it didn't happen. The meaning I give that about who I am and should I take that action again, that's all what's happening, between the 2 years right there. That's the story and the interpretation. So I don't believe failure stops anyone. I believe the story the person tells themselves about the failure is what stops them. Failure never stopped anyone. It's the narrative that they tell themselves about the story of failure is what stops them. Failing has no control over anyone. It's the interpretation of what happens in that stops them. So, just right now, launching a company that's been around for 20 years and just went to the marketing of direct sales where they developed a great product and a great brand. And now we're creating the direct sale infrastructure. There was no inherent failure, but like building the plane as it's flying. And that's been a journey, and that's been beautiful. And literally, we've been here for about 8 months now, going into almost a year now. No, well, the year since it happened, but I decided to come on board July 4th, and now everything's firing on all cylinders, and things are phenomenal. But if I would have looked at when I first came over, even though I had the optimistic mindset, knew it was going to take time, but everything that you think is going to be simple and streamlined never is. It's like when you leave the house sometimes, and you're like, oh, it's nice outside, I'm not going to take a coat. Then you go outside, then it starts getting cold. Like, wait a minute, I wish I would have got a coat, right? So you may want to go start a business and be like, oh, yeah, I'm just going to go out there with a coat. But, hey, it's windy out there. Like, hey, you may want to get married and think everything's fine. I'm going to go get married. But, hey, it's windy in the marriage. Like, hey, you think it's going to be cool to have kids. Like, oh, I'm just going to have kids. It's going to be nice. I'm not going to get a coat. Hey, it's windy having kids. So just knowing that what you think may be is not always there. It's always going to take more, and it's your perspective in the fire that's going to help you get you through it.
Oh, don't shout him down when he's preaching good. That's good. I love that. Awesome. Okay, I wrote down fail forward as you were talking about that. So let me just switch gears for a minute. What do you wish you would have known starting out? Like your entrepreneur journey, like what do you wish you would have known that may help somebody else out when they're just starting out on their entrepreneur journey?
Commit, take action.
Yeah.
Fail as quick as possible. Because I don't know what particular industry that person may be in, so there's no specific, nugget I can give you for that specific industry. All I can say is just commit, take action, and be willing to fail as fast as possible. I just wish I would have been willing to fail faster. I wish I would have went faster, stronger, and longer, and been more wise with the management of my time and my resources and my treasures. Right, diversifying more, creating different streams of income. I truly believe that now that I've learned something I learned from a mentor who wasn't in industry. He helped me get into corporate America, and he still is a dear mentor of mine, Bruce Lang. He was my football coach. He used to say this: I never got what he meant by it. I got it, but now I got it. And he didn't say it in a way where it's like be scared every day, but he said wake up every day paranoid. And it wasn't in a way where he was like fearful and like be afraid, because people say, hey, just have faith and walk through and all that. It's like, yeah, but hey, be prepared for whatever comes at you, because anything can come. And one of my mentors in our previous company, super successful, McDaniels, I love him. I heard her say, don't chase the money for the sake of the money. You chase it for the freedom, because one day I guarantee you're going to need it. So the freedom that the financial stability will give for you, and what you think is stability, you have to question that. Like, what is stability? It's relative to your upbringing and your mindset of understanding of what stability is, where you think you have good income now, but inflation's about to happen to all of us here as they start printing more money out, and the economy can slow down a little bit. People stop spending money. You may have 2 months worth of saving, but you may need 6 months of savings. So it's like, what is truly enough? Like, you don't really know that. And then the last part in that financial, when you have enough that you believe that truly can take care of your family's legacy, but when you think you make it enough, you're just not giving enough away. It's what you can contribute back to. When I look at some of these things that are happening right now, when people being laid off for 6 months or beyond, a company I've worked with on some influencer stuff that have it was an airplane company. They were a flight company, private flight company. They're going under, just like that, doing very well. And I was partnering with them, working with them on some business consulting thing, and they're just done. And just the things that they can't survive, and thinking about the smaller guy or gal who can't provide for their kids right now. If I had enough resources, what I could potentially do, stand for them and serve for them, and provide in just an area of need, not forever, but just to give them some gap, income. But as you spoke about earlier, sometimes we have to feel that pain for ourselves for us to make the change, for ourselves. Mm-hmm. And there was an old saying of this old man who had this grandchild that was out in the wilderness, and he saw the caterpillar that was struggling to get out, and the caterpillar the young boy went to go help the caterpillar get out, so he cut him out, and he cut him out too soon, and the caterpillar came out, and he was just deformed, and he fell off, and he died. And he came back crying to his grandfather, like, grandfather, come look. And the grandpa said, oh, son, like, you helped him when you weren't supposed to. Like, he needs to wrestle and fight its way out so it can develop its wing strength so it can fall off. So sometimes, looking for help in the wrong time, you don't develop the strength that you actually need to go and grow. So, that's something I had to learn early on, was to go faster, stronger, and longer at a higher rate to protect my family. But also, when some of those times I was looking for help, I had to look within and know that I already had everything I needed to survive.
I love that. My spiritual dad has always said this to me: chase the mission, Rachel, not the money. Chase the mission. Yeah. And what I love about you and a few other people that are very, very successful is you just have a servant heart. Like, you literally just serve people to serve people, not really expecting. Like, Don Funk is somebody else who I think about. When I think about a servant, I think about you and I think about her. Like, and you can only judge a tree by its fruit, right? And so, like, you have a very fruitful tree just because you understand, you have wisdom, knowing that it's all about being a servant first and chasing the mission, right? Because money, again, you can't take it with you, right? And so it's just when you have the chase the mission. And something else I was thinking about when you were talking is, with high performers, we tend to go after the hard things. Do you know what I mean? Like, I feel like we go after the hard things because, and maybe subconsciously it's because we're doing it to grow ourselves, or maybe we do it consciously. I don't know. But it seems like, we're always on a constant how can I grow today? What can I do to grow today? And it's all about mindset. And then that's the one thing I think could be huge for anybody, is just your mindset and how you approach anything. So, let's see. Let's talk about your passions. You're very passionate about helping at-risk youth, and you're very passionate about the homeless epidemic. Like, where did that stem from?
Well, I was homeless 2 times in my life. Once when I was 15, I remember my mom coming inside and saying, "Hey, grab everything you can. We got to get out." And there was this moment of, like fear, but anger of like, okay, we pray to this big guy up in the cloud all the time. What's going on here? And Dad's down at the church, and like we're taking care of the church and all these people, but we're losing our place. Like, what's happening here? Doesn't make sense to me. So I really wrestled with that, and that's where I found like a passion in, once again, football, because I felt like that's where I could let a lot of my frustration out, in wrestling and sports. But then I started to understand there was a problem with money. Like, well, why don't we have money? Well, these guys on the corner are making money, so I'm going to go take care of this problem myself. So that's where that started, from the homeless thing. And then when I worked in corporate America, and I got fired that last time, I found out that, hey, nothing's guaranteed. Even though I graduated from college, had a degree, thought everything was going to be great, worked 4 years in corporate America, tied off of 40% of the income, and that wasn't real. And I ended up losing my place. Car got repoed, and I was never in the place of homelessness, like sleeping on a bench outside or sleeping underneath a bridge. Like, I never got to that severeness. Sleeping at my buddy's house, when I was in high school, him and his mom took me in. My mom and my sisters, they went to different places until they got back on their feet, and then we all moved back in together. And then that time when I was an adult, I moved in with my buddy and slept on his couch. So I really just understood how quick someone can lose everything. Like, just like right now, there's people losing stuff right now in this moment. Like, someone's probably getting evicted out of their home right now. And sometimes we can look down on homeless people and say, oh, they're just drug addicts, or, they just mismanage their money. It's their fault. Figure it out. But I understand, because I walked through that. So there's healing for other people in our scars and in our wounds. So our scars is what we overcome, and our wounds are what we're maybe going through right now. So by me being a voice for those people, empowering them, being to support. When I lived in Vegas, I used to go down to the Shade Tree. It was a women's shelter. I would serve every Wednesday. We used to get paid every other Wednesday. So when I got paid, I would make sure that I just served back and gave my times and my talents back to people that were in a less fortunate situation than myself. And then I recently stepped in more, putting the homeless on the side. I've focused more on at-risk youth, because I was that kid that was exactly them. Sometimes they are even worse off than when I was, because at least I had both my parents. And I had a little bit of structure. Some of these kids have no structure, no guidance, but they do have community in their group that they run with, their crew, their gang. And people understand, well, why won't someone be a part of the gang? Well, you don't understand. Gangs give people love. It gives them a self-esteem. It gives them self-worth. They learn from these people. They empower them, and they teach them how to make money. And a lot of times these kids are kind of like shamed off into the world, where once they leave, they have a 70 to 80% likelihood of returning in the next 2, 3, 5 years after being released from prison. Like, that's the likelihood that they have, because they go back into the same environment, and they get this false narrative that's told to them, like, oh, you can do anything you want to do, and you should go to school. And I tell them, like, hey, some of you guys probably shouldn't go to school. Like, school is not for you. And some of you guys shouldn't go get a job, because you're not an employee. Like, we get told to be employed, but we never teach people how to deploy themselves. And they're already deploying themselves as, what the law says, illegal distribution, because all the law has to do is be changed. And one drug that used to be bad is now legal. And there's certain, corporate people that can get involved in it and make millions and billions of dollars. But when someone is considered a criminal for selling that particular narcotic, we won't dive into the morality of that, is locked up and have a record and washed away for life and can't get a job because of their felony, they get shamed away. So they won't even try to go apply for a job. But I empower them and say, hey, you're already an entrepreneur. Like, you get distribution. You know how to sell. You know how to communicate. Right. Like, you're actually not afraid of people. Like, you know how to look people in the eyes and have an enrolling conversation. Like, have you ever considered sales? Have you ever considered real estate? Have you ever considered direct sales? Like, you have a skill set that 90% of people in the world are terrified to do. And that's look someone in the eyes and tell them what you're up to in the world. And I empower them from an entrepreneur standpoint versus just giving them the soft soapy, oh yeah, go to school, get a job, and everything will be fine. I really talk about what they've been exposed to is transferable potentially in the business world. Not that business is malicious or anything like that. There's nowhere near that, because a great life skill is a great business skill. If you want to be successful, you have to learn how to serve, you spoke about. But the fearlessness, the approach to walk into a room and look someone in the eyes and have a conversation with them and potentially enroll someone through selling something that you're passionate about, that you believe in, that can add value to them. They could do wonders in that, from high ticket sales to real estate sales to insurance sales and even if they start off like, I can't get a job, you can go sell cars off the lot, literally released the day of being released from jail. They will hire you. But these kids don't get told that. They get told, oh, you're a criminal. Oh, you're a felon. You will never get a job. And then their community tells them, like, why are you trying to do that? If you're going to work at McDonald's and only make, $10 an hour? Like, that's not going to do anything. So I really give them a different perspective to talk about what they've been exposed to has prepared them for things in the world of business ownership and entrepreneurship. And I bring different speakers in, some of my friends that I've built organizations with, some of my friends that are trainers and gym owners. Some of these guys love working out. I teach them how to start a training business or end up opening their own gym, like one of my good friends, Chris Barber, who was a part of our organization. He started training people in the park, and now he owns a gym, and he's into direct sales with multiple streams of income. And he tells his story of how he never went to jail, but he was that close, he easily could have went, and how he made the shift and fitness saved his life. So we talk about, hey, you could be a fitness professional just by going out of the park and training people, and teach them ideas. Like, you guys have this new, prison fit workout you could start, and it can go viral, and maybe you got these prison workouts you could do at home, because we're all quarantined right now anyway, right? So it gets them inspired, it gets them excited, and it gets them dreaming and believing in themselves again. And that's my biggest hope that I can provide for them, is that they leave away believing that they are more than the worst thing that's ever happened to them, and more than the worst thing that they've ever done. Because sometimes we write people off, not even knowingly. Like, we say that we forgive and, you can come back, but we still sometimes hold on to people of who they were in their past. But I just keep reminding them that they're more than the worst things that ever happened to them, and the worst thing that they've ever done.
And you said hope, and I saw an acronym that you put together for hope. It says help one person every day.
Yeah.
That's an acronym that's on your website. And I think that's because we know that the power of one is so powerful. That's why my business is Women at the Well Academy, because that one woman that Jesus met at the well, she brought the whole town back to the well. The disciples brought back lunch. She brought back the whole entire town, And so we know the power of helping one person every day, and that's kind of each one teach one, right? It's kind of our motto. So, okay, so let's talk a little bit about your book that you're writing.
Yeah, I feel it's amazing, because I've been having this idea for the last 5 years. There's a book in every single one of us, and then it's the step of sitting down and taking action. And I've started obviously doing this shelter in place, starting to write it out. And I saw this quote by Toni Morrison. She's a famous author. She just passed on, I think, a month or so ago. She said, I finally got tired and I wrote the book I wanted to read. And that was a famous quote. And I think if everyone, especially people that love reading, because I love to read, I have a library, I'm always diving into books. And it was this book came out of my own personal testimony and personal growth. And I believe that's the greatest book to start there. And then obviously you write on different things, you may evolve and do other things. But the book that I'm writing is called The Trinity in Me, and it represents these 3 pillars of identity. And I believe we're emotionally homeless, spiritually lost, and culturally starving. And those 3 pillars represent how you create your identity. From the emotional side, it's through your traumatic experiences from your past or childhood. It's really understanding how you created yourself without knowing, or how you got trapped into this way of being, because there's things and circumstances we've been exposed to that we say our past shapes us. But if those events didn't happen, or we made it mean something different about what happened, I would be a totally different person right now. So it's not that there's anything inherently wrong with me or the individual, but it's just the self-discovery and self-awareness. Self-awareness is the rarest trait amongst human beings. We don't even understand why we do certain things. So it's really kind of going back. There's a saying in the Ghana culture in Africa called Sankofa. We have to return back to get. Like, we have to go back to the past and understand, okay, what happened to me when I was 7, 8, 10 years old in my childhood that triggered this emotion where I felt like I wasn't enough or something that wasn't right. I got afraid, and it shaped the way I look at the world, because how we view the world is how we will do the world. And for us to change our belief system, we have to reevaluate how we see something. So we have to go back and discover this person that we became from our childhood to our adolescence to our adulthood. So there's some deep self-work, and sometimes it's opening some things up that's very traumatic, and that's why most people won't do it. So it's very painful, but it's very powerful when we can walk through from an emotional standpoint. So that's the first pillar of the book. The second part of the book is from a spirituality standpoint, where most people don't understand spirituality at the deep core. Where, like myself, I was born into a Baptist family. My father was a preacher, and that's what I believed is truth, just because that's what it was given to me. And just because someone is born in a Christian family, or someone born in a Muslim family, or someone born as an atheist, okay, you have to go through your own self-discovery. You have to go on your own quest. Why are you an atheist? Like, have you even picked up a Bible? Why are you Muslim? Like, why are you Christian? Like, have you discovered for yourself? So going on that journey for yourself, not taking, fault anyone for in their particular belief, just being open to go on your discovery and owning it and making it yours versus taking it from your family and getting trapped in it, because so many people just believe because that's what their family believes. They never go on that quest for themselves and make it their own. And then from a cultural standpoint, I believe there's power in knowing your legacy and your tradition of where you come from, because a tree without roots can't produce fruit. So really just understanding from a cultural standpoint, I believe that can end racism. If I ask you, like, hey, Rachel, where you're from? You're like, oh, I'm from Minnesota or Kentucky. I'm like, okay, that's cool. Like, oh, yeah, I was born in Kentucky, but my family roots actually trace back to Ireland, and my grandfather actually escaped this. Like, there's so much depth to that. And if you were to ask me, where are you from? I'm from Oakland, but my mom's from Louisiana, but we actually, arrived over here from Ghana and Nigeria, and they have this thing in their culture where we do this, right? So there's like this deep sense of respect for different cultures and diversities, and I really believe that helps someone really have a healthy sense of oneself. Because when we're going through the world and we're meeting strangers, we're really strangers to ourselves. We don't truly know who we really are. So going through these 3 pillars, you can help yourself define who you truly are.
And we're all descendants of Abraham. I mean, exactly. We're all descendants of Abraham. But I totally get that. I did that whole DNA thing a couple years ago. It was very interesting. It's how I learned how to eat, really. I'm like 62% Northwestern Europe, and it was like, oh, it's interesting. So yeah, I totally believe I went on that same trek too. Like, I want to know a little bit more about why, whatever. So that's awesome. And we talked a little bit about creating in your brand that you've created with just helping people create, right? Creating champions. So share a little bit about your passion there, and how did that spark?
Well, it sparked in me because I've always believed that I was a champion, and when I start to understand words are powerful, I try my best to be a wordsmith. I always try to be very careful with the words that I use, because with words we create the world with the meaning that we give it. The word champion means ardent defender of purpose and people. So I want to be an ardent defender of purpose and people, and I want to help other people do the same thing. Champion for the things that they are passionate about. But I may have to help, not so much help, but more support in them finding their inner creator, where there's a creator inside of us, because we were made in his image. So we're all creators, right? So we create with our words. Death and life is in the tongue. So the word creator, I take it from the, Arabic word, I think it's abracadabra, and it means with my mouth, speak life. I create. So it's the same thing of death and life in the tongue from Proverbs. And we create champions with our words by us speaking into people's lives and reminding them who they are and what they're capable of creating in the world. So that's where the whole brand came from. Because as I was starting to develop a huge name for myself in direct sales, other companies and organizations and people wanted me to come speak to them, churches, businesses, juvenile detention centers. And I was like, okay, I need to create a brand that aligns with my vision so that I can go out and make a difference in the world outside of the sector of the direct sale industries. And that's how it was birthed 3 years ago.
That's amazing. Speaking of, Jeremiah is a very, first time I heard him speak, I think everybody, at Dallas Cowboys Stadium, 25,000 people just on the edge of their seats. Like, who is this guy? Just very amazing. So Jeremiah, I want you to tell people, how can they find you?
You can find me at jeremiahcaptain.com, or you can find me on Instagram at creatingchampions.com. You can find me at jeremiah.captain@gmail. You could pretty much Google my name and spell it wrong and still find me. If you're looking for me, you could find me. I'm out there. I'm not hiding.
That's awesome. Oh, we'll have all those links as part of the summit video and the YouTube video. So one last thing. So if you had one superpower, what would that be?
One superpower, man. I guess I already feel like I'm flying, so I don't want to do that. I wouldn't want to go crazy reading people's minds, because I'll just go crazy listening to all the crap in people's heads. I would love to go back in time. I don't know if that's a superpower or not, but I would love to go back in time and experience all the beautiful yet painful things that have happened in our world, and meet with some of the greatest minds and the greatest thinkers, and obviously the greatest one of all. We'd love to experience that.
That's amazing. Yeah, that would be a good one too. So any parting words for our listeners, any encouragement, any Jeremiah Captain quotes that we could part with?
I already said one, and this is something I love to hang my hat on. No matter where you're at in life, just know that each of us is more than the worst thing that's ever happened to us and the worst thing we've ever done. No matter what, you're more than that. And you can overcome whatever situation you're going through right now, whatever you've been through in your past. You can overcome it by you just knowing, your power that's connected inside of you that comes from the Almighty. And, greatness can be captured in one word, and that's lifestyle. Life is God's gift to you, but the style is what you make of it. It's what you do with it. So that's it right there.
That's a mic drop. That's a booyah. Awesome. Hey, Jeremiah, thank you so much for joining us. And friends, make sure you go and check Jeremiah and find him. Thanks so much, Jeremiah.
Thank you.